time to get used to different streaming format, at least on my end. I'm streaming on my iPad because I said this in a video, at least one video. My MacBook doesn't work anymore. Yay. Oh, wait, I should probably share this stream. Or, post a link in my Discord server. Okay, there we go. Posted the link. Mikey is live. That's the default title when you stream on mobile, I guess. I wanted to change the title, but it wasn't letting me. So just gotta go with Mikey is live, which is fine. I mean, name my stream just random shit, and I was kind of running out of names to give my streams anyway. So probably after this stream is over, I'll edit the title and just put like the date or something to, you know, differentiate each stream that I'm going to be doing for my iPad from now on, because like I said, don't have my MacBook anymore. Well, I have it, but it doesn't work anymore. First, I thought the battery was swelling because that's what the first shop I took it to said was the problem, and they refused to open it up to check to see if that was the actual problem because the bottom of it was kind of bulging. But then I went to another shop, they actually opened the fucking thing up and said, no, the battery isn't swelling. It's just that there's a issue with the keyboard and the trackpad, and it's very pricey to fix it, and they're honest, saying, hey, you're better off getting a new one because it's not a guarantee able to fix your problem. So who knows when I'll get another computer. For now, I'm just kind of using my iPad for everything. Well, not everything. I'm also using my a spare laptop my uncle has. Well, it's really his personal laptop, but it's one that he barely ever uses. He uses his work laptop a lot more than his personal one, so I've been using that for work, really. Everything else is the iPad, including video making. Started using what's that fucking Cute Cut. That was an app that I was using from. Well, I know I was using it all the way up until I got the MacBook. But I started using it around 2017, 2016. It's actually a pretty competent video editor, at least for one that's, you know, on a mobile device. I remember I had an online friend years and years ago who made videos on that app, and actually, like, the editing was actually pretty decently, really well done for a phone app. I remember being impressed. I was like, damn, you could do all that on CuteCut? Because, you know, my videos is just fucking throwing an image up on screen. I'm not a good editor at all. Never tried to be. Don't really give a shit. Yeah, I've been using that. I miss iMovie. Well, I know there's an iMovie on the iPhone and iPad, but it's amazing. The iMovie app was shit all the way back when I was using it like 10 years ago. And I stopped using it 10 years ago because it was shit. And it is amazing how that app has not changed at all in a decade. Still incredibly limited. You can't, every time you fucking want to use an image, it automatically like zooms in on the image, and you can't crop it, you can't like zoom out or like use the image as it is. It always like fucking zooms in on the image. It's really weird. Apple is the app version of iMovie is incredibly restrictive. Well, to be fair, I mean, it's not like the MacBook version of iMovie was incredibly gave you a lot of liberty either, but it provided enough for the kind of videos I make. I was happy using it for these last 7 years. Someday when I have the fucking money. Which hopefully maybe that day is sooner rather than later, but we'll see. Anyway, there's 6 people here and I've been rambling for 5 minutes. And I know there's been some chat messages that I've been completely neglecting because of my rambling. That always takes precedence over reading what other people have to say, because I just love the sound of my voice so much. Starting with the thoughts. What are your thoughts on the whole Lego scandal thing between Reckless Ben versus the bricks and minifigs? I don't know what the fuck any of that is. No opinion. Well, I've heard there's been something going on with Lego or whatever, but I have not looked into that at all because I have had zero interest, frankly. First Mikey stream on an iPad. Actually, no. I think sometime last year I streamed on this iPad just as like a test. I remember not liking it so much. I much prefer the desktop stream dashboard. Also, just liked being able to open other tabs and shit while streaming. Like if I wanted to look something up or like look into something someone in the chat would bring up, but I have my phone for that, so that's fine, I guess. I remember years and years ago I used to stream just on my phone because that's all I had back then, my phone. I didn't have a computer or anything. Well, since middle school I did have a shitty laptop that I really didn't like using because it came preloaded with Windows 8. Well, that wasn't really the issue because eventually Windows 10 came out and upgraded to that. Which I much preferred that OS over Windows 8 that tried to make your fucking desktop be like a tablet. That was stupid. Anyway, so I had that, but I only used that for like school and shit, you know, like stuff that I actually had to do, and instead of actually using it recreationally like I did with my MacBook up until a few weeks ago. But I did everything on my phone, including making my videos for the first 5 or so years on my channel, all on well, when I started uploading on this channel, all I had was an iPod Touch. Then I got an iPhone 6, and then I think I got an iPhone 8 before I got my MacBook. So yeah, all my videos were done on a phone, and all the streams that I did back then were also done on a phone. And I remember really not liking that. Mainly because I would get calls sometimes during streams. Back then, when you got a call on your iPhone, it wasn't just like a drop-down notification. No, it would interrupt like what you're in the middle of fucking doing and take precedence. It would take up the whole screen. And I would get calls sometimes during streams, and when that would happen, the stream would like go offline. It would even say the stream is offline. Then like, back then I had more viewers, so like I had maybe like 20 people watching my stream, and then all of a sudden that would happen. Then like fucking 15 of them would leave, or even more than that, and I'd have like 2 fucking people left watching the remainder of the stream. So that kind of fucking sucked. But since this is an iPad, that's not an issue, and Apple kind of fixed that, or at least made calls less intrusive on whatever you were in the middle of doing. But no, I did do an iPad stream, I think sometime last summer, maybe like last July or August, something like that. But whatever, I mean, all this shit is just stuff that annoys me. It's not like my videos have really changed all that much since I began, having to make them on an iPad, and now streaming on an iPad. I mean, It's probably better for you, but the camera quality is better than my MacBook's webcam. Yeah, I just really missed the stream dashboard. That was on desktop. I miss desktop YouTube in general. Fucking hate the app. I've tried to use the desktop site on my iPad. Every time I try to, you know, press the request desktop site button, it just doesn't work. It used to work years ago. I used to like using the desktop site on my iPhone, and even though it was like really, um, even though the format really wasn't the best for an iPhone at all. So, like if I was reading comments, I much preferred like the desktop view over the web browser version of YouTube. Would you ever visit Folk Valley? I don't know. What is Folk Valley? A viral. I'm not reading the fucking AI overview shit. It's just like some meme shit. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Hello, Dylan. How you doing today? I guess with that, maybe I should say how I'm doing. Not the best today, honestly. Woke up kind of fucking depressed. No reason, really. Nothing's been going on. Nothing bad. Just one of those days. Just one of those days. Was there that Limp Bizkit song? It's all about the he said, she said bullshit. I like Limp Bizkit. Well, maybe like is too strong of a word. I don't listen to them regularly at all. And I've never listened to a whole Limp Bizkit album. But like, some of the hits, they're stupid, yes. I'm not gonna pretend they're a good band. More like, I mean, I don't really like having guilty pleasures because, I'm kind of unapologetic when it comes to stuff I like. But it's more like, I know their music is stupid, but it's kind of like a fun kind of stupid. And plus, the nostalgia factor. I remember my dad used to like playing a lot of Limp Bizkit. He was into new metal when I was a kid. He still likes new metal. But, especially back then when the genre, well, it wasn't new in the mid 2000s, but, it was still, I don't even know if it was still popular by that point. But, it was still, like, relatively new. And, he was listening to that kind of music a lot back then. I remember my mom would yell at him and say, turn that shit off. Well, she wouldn't say shit. She barely ever curses, but she thought the music was awful. But my dad, he did play a pivotal role in my music taste. Even though I'm not the biggest new metal fan, and I like certain bands within that genre, very few. What is this setting? Lighting on, lighting off. Oh, like enhances the lighting. There's a little blue circle on this button, so I was wondering what the fuck it did. I'm kind of afraid to touch some buttons because I don't want to fuck anything up, but at the same time, I'm kind of curious as to what they do. Ooh, what does this button do? This is a magic wand. What does this do? Retouch on, retouch off. I barely notice a difference. This, I think, is a clip button to like clip certain portions of your stream, and you know they would be separate uploads. So I'm not gonna do that. Maybe that would be handy if we're going to like a rant about something. I want to click that. This is a camera button. I don't know exactly what this does. Should I find out? Oh, turns the camera off. Oh, that's convenient. I don't think even the desktop dashboard had that. Hey, sometimes I do these streams and I'm like, I don't feel like going on fucking camera. So maybe someday I'll just do a stream where it's just my profile picture. I don't know. Maybe. It's a nice profile picture, so I wouldn't mind seeing that for 2 hours. That picture is my profile picture is fan art. Someone in my Discord server drew of me. First time, I believe, someone has ever drawn fan art of me. It's flattering. Did you hear about Gideon's arrest? Gideon? I don't know who that is. At least I don't think I do. I don't know. I think the name kind of sounds a little familiar. Yeah, there's a Wikipedia page. Jidin Armani Adams, born December 12th, 2000, just a few months older than me. Known as Gideon, probably butchering that, is an American YouTuber and live streamer. He initially gained recognition for his vlogging. Is there a controversy section? Yes, there is. Figured that's where information regarding this person's arrest would be. Adams's online predator catching activities have drawn criticism from law enforcement officials. In 2025, he confronted an Indiana volleyball coach. Oh wait, this is ringing some bells. Not about his recent arrest, but didn't this person do like a predator catching video on EDP where he was wearing some like stupid suit? This was like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Now I think I remember who this person is. What did they do recently? On June 22nd, 2026, Adams was arrested in Woodhaven, Michigan, while live streaming during an effort to confront an alleged squatter connected to fellow YouTuber Skeeter Jean. Skeeter. Police stated that 4 individuals were arrested for breach of the peace and stalking after officers responded to reports of a crowd gathering outside a local McDonald's. Okay. I mean, that's doesn't really give too much information, but yeah, I don't have much to say about that. Related articles. Leafy is here. Ugh. Nico Amelina. I have no idea who that is. Pokemon. She's Canadian? Says that on her little preview for her article. Hello all. Hello Big Jerry. How you doing? Hope you're happy and healthy on this fine Friday. Kind of a gloomy Friday. I notice a lot of the times I stream, it's fucking gloomy outside. It's cloudy. Trust me, not every day in NYC is like this. We have our share of beautiful days. We're not We're not England. London. What do you think of Jacob Collier? Another person to look up. Again, I really miss my MacBook because I could just like open another tab and whatever. Singer and songwriter. I have no idea who they are. I've never listened to their music. Um, well, did they do anything recently, or are you just asking my opinion on their music? Because if it's the latter, I have no idea who they are. So I have no idea. I have no opinion on their music. Doing good. That's good to hear. Got out of the house today for meds, snacks, a frozen pizza, bread, sugar, and breakfast for tomorrow. It's a lot of stuff. Um, the the heat. Well, yesterday wasn't so bad, so I did go out. But you know, lately the heat has been fucking awful. I mean, to be expected. It's July, but yeah, that's kind of deterred me from going out. And also, we had a few days where the weather was pretty ugly, as in it was raining a lot. The other night, I had to clean out the basement again. Well, not clean out the basement, more like clean up water that was accumulating right outside the basement, the back door leading out to the backyard that's in the basement. Um, because we have pumps there. There's a drain there, and we have pumps to that's supposed to like get the water out, but they don't fucking do anything. So we get the wet vac and suck up the water that's accumulating there before it gets into the house. So that's not so bad. Me and my mother were doing that for like maybe a half hour. Um, but just much more preferable than staying down there for like 4 hours cleaning up water that not decimate our basement, but got into our basement, and it's just so fucking much to clean up. I haven't had to do that in a while, thank God. Mainly because we've been doing that, cleaning up the water out that's accumulating right outside the back door before it has a chance of getting into the house. Which I prefer doing that. But yeah, the weather's been hot and ugly a lot. Which again, it's summertime. That's pretty typical this time of the year here in NYC, and I know it's much worse in other places, like Florida, for example. Hurricane season, and your really hot summers, and not even just hurricanes, just rain all the time in general. Yeah, even with even the horrendous politics in Florida aside, yeah, no interest in ever living there. No, thank you. That fucking What the fucking weather they have. So I haven't been going outside that much lately. Usually when the weather is relatively nice. I did get a scooter recently. I used to have one when I was a teenager. I've been riding scooters since I was a kid, but I haven't ridden on a scooter since probably I was in high school, and I've got back into the habit. I was like, I'm doing these walks. Why not also ride a scooter like I used to? I used to really like riding them, and I'm getting back into that habit. I haven't ridden a bike either since high school, but I've always liked scooters more than bikes. I don't know if that's a hot take, but if it is, that's my hot take. It took me a much less time to learn how to ride a scooter than to ride a bike. I finally got the hang of riding a bike probably when I was like 8 or 9, and I first started riding on a scooter since I was like when I was like 4 or 5. So yeah, last time I went out, which was yesterday, I rode my scooter around and went to the back park. Last week I went to the park that's across the street from my circle. That was nice. Rode my scooter around there for like an hour. I like going outside. It's just that I don't like going outside when it's in less than ideal weather. Which again, unfortunately, during summertime is most days, at least for me. I know there's plenty of people, like certain friends of mine, who love this summer because, oh my god, it's beach. It's the time of the year to go to the beach and all that shit. Never really liked the beach at all. Maybe it's partly an autism thing, like, all that sand that gets everywhere. Ugh. Also got a Sonic the Hedgehog comic from Third Eye Comics, a comic store that has locations in just Maryland and Virginia. Well, never heard of it because, one, I don't live in either of those states, and two, never cared about comic books or like comic book adjacent stuff. Well, maybe except, the Spider-Man games that are on PlayStation, like those. Probably play the Wolverine game that Insomniac has coming in a few months. That looks like a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it'll almost certainly be the last Insomniac title that releases on disc. Fuck Sony. About Third Eye, there's a location opening up in Glen Burnie. Okay. Did you hear about PlayStation's response? Speaking of PlayStation, to the backlash, or a so-called response by showing off a new PlayStation controller? Well, to my understanding, I just watched a Mystic video where he talks about PlayStation news that's gone on during the week that he does every Friday. I like watching those every time I eat breakfast on Fridays. Uh, but yeah, to my understanding, they've been completely ignoring the backlash. Just well, they did take a break from most of their social media pages, besides their YouTube channel at least, for last weekend, after they announced, that they're ending physical disc production in 2028. I guess they thought, hibernating for a few days would 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 I guess quell, or at the very least, the backlash would die down within a few days if they were to disappear for a few days. But nope, that wasn't the case at all. They they did, like you said, they posted some advert for a new controller, or a new controller variant, and adverts for games and such. And Mystic did bring up the point, like, publishers and other you know um and developers and such probably really don't like that adverts for their games are getting bombed to hell and back for something they didn't even fucking do. It skews the perception of what Sony is advertising because of because of their catastrophic announcement with ending physical disc production, because that's all people want to focus on. But that indirectly makes what they're advertising look bad, because their posts are being ratioed to hell. Their YouTube uploads are getting disliked out the ass, which I know you can't see that metric officially, but if you have The dislike extension on a desktop. Another thing I really miss about my MacBook. But anyway, if you have that extension enabled, you'll. I know it doesn't give you. I know it's not exactly the most accurate information that extension presents to you, but you still get the general understanding that people are disliking their videos in mass. I hope the backlash keeps up, but I know how this is gonna end. People are gonna eventually get bored and move on to the next outrage cycle. Sony's not gonna change course, more than likely. I mean, it's looking pretty certain they're not gonna change course. They have a manufacturing facility that was, I think, entirely dedicated to printing discs that they're not laying people off, I don't think, but they're like trying to repurpose that facility into something else, because this was likely a long this definitely wasn't a decision that was made like just last week, like on the fly. This was something that was a long time coming. um and the PlayStation 6 is going to be an all digital system. Maybe at best you'll get like a disk drive add-on for your PS5 discs, and hopefully also your PS4 discs. So the console was likely designed to be a digital only console. That's something that you can't exactly pivot away from easily, especially since this console is supposedly going to release next year or 2028 at the latest. Yeah, shit sucks. As much as I would love for Sony to reverse this decision, I don't think they are. Not even just because they're stubborn, but because there's several factors that make it really difficult for them to just go back on this decision. It's still like really fucking shit. I do hope at the very, very least, Sony backpedals in the sense that they'll be like, okay, we'll still manufacture discs for PS5 versions of games, but PS6 is still going to be a digital only system. That'll still fucking suck, don't get me wrong, but I do not plan on upgrading to a PS6. Even before this announcement, that Sony is ending production for physical media, at least when it comes to their games, and third-party games, of course. The PS6. I mean, what is there really to be excited about? It's probably gonna be $1,200 at the fucking least. Let's be honest. Graphical leaps and hardware leaps in between generations. Isn't that fucking impressive anymore? I mean, yeah, sure. Games on the PS5 by and large are more impressive than they were on PS4. I'm not going to say there's no noticeable difference at all, but really, is it really a huge difference? Not really. We're seeing diminishing in returns when it comes to graphical leaps and hardware leaps in between generations. So that's why, even before this announcement, Sony ending, physical disc production for games, I was not hyped for the PS6 at all. I was like, I'm probably going to stick with my PS5 well into the next console generation, because I am sure overlap between the PS5 and the PS6 is going to be much longer than the overlap between PS4 and PS5. So, I was planning on sticking with my PS5 for a very long time, and I'm still going to. But now I know for sure I'm almost certainly not getting a PS6. No, thank you. Okay, what was the last message I was responding to? I think it was this one that brought up the backlash and backlash against PlayStation shit. Boy, hello Abby. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday to you, Aaron. Hopefully, your Friday is going well. At least better than my Friday, which, like I said before, I woke up in kind of a shitty, depressed mood. And still am. I still am in a shitty, depressed mood. But, trying to distract myself away from that with this stream, which is kind of working. W. Michael, thank you. The heat in the UK is horrendous again this week, yeah. I've heard a bit about the latest heat wave in the UK, not just from you. Um, yeah, I mean, the heat wave that's been here in NYC, I mean, I shouldn't say heat wave, we've just had a few days of like 100 plus degree weather and, weather that is like 90 something degrees, but it's not like something that's been like consistent. We've also had days that have dropped down to like the mid to low 80s, or hell, even the last few days have been in the 70s. Very erratic weather. Even the other night, we had a really nice breeze. I loved it. I wish all the summer was like that. But, and then I think, how much worse off certain parts of the world have it when it comes to the, heat. Which is really, what we've been experiencing in NYC has been nothing compared to those places, like the UK and much of Europe. I mean, it's especially worse there since the UK, at least, or all of Europe, or a lot of Europe, but I know the UK at the very least. AC is not in a lot of homes. It's not common like it is here in the States, because it doesn't typically get as hot as it has been in the UK lately. And someone did bring up in my Discord server, I think it was you that, or maybe someone else, I don't remember, but homes in the UK are built to keep heat in, which makes it even worse. My condolences to people over there. Yeah, really. People are trying to write community notes on everything PlayStation posts on Twitter to mention the end of physical PlayStation games. Yeah, I've heard of that, but I don't look at Twitter. They're getting ratioed everywhere. I have Blue Sky, and they've been getting ratioed there even. Sure, on their Facebook page, it's the same thing, and I know their YouTube videos are getting bombarded with hate comments and dislikes. Again, keep up the backlash, absolutely, but I don't know if it's going to do much in the end. There's a change.org petition, even, to try to get Sony to go back on their decision. Yeah. I mean, I did sign it just to do something, like, but yeah, I'm not gonna like hold my breath on not changing anything. It does have a decent amount of signatures though, something like 300,000. Again, I know that's not going to do anything more than likely, but just for the sake of showing solidarity, I decided to sign it as well. I wonder for how much longer Sony is going to ignore the backlash, but because they have to acknowledge it in some capacity eventually. Not even to like backpedal, just like to say something in response to the backlash. It's too bad Microsoft is so fucking shit now, or at least the Xbox brand is, because this could have been an easy slam dunk for Xbox. Like they could have fucking done the fucking Uno reverse on Sony. They could have done their own video. Here's how you share your games on Xbox, and then, and you know, they could, you know, probably get some goodwill back from that. But, you know, this is something Xbox has wanted for the last, like, at least 13 years when they tried to do the whole, like, always online, DRM friendly Xbox One. Like, the whole disastrous Xbox One reveal where they heavily emphasized on watching TV, watching movies on your Xbox, doing everything possible on your Xbox besides, you know, playing fucking games on it. And one of something a big thing they wanted to clamp down on was people, you know, sharing their games or buying their games secondhand because, you know, they buy their games, but then when they install the game onto their Xbox, it would be tied to their own Xbox and and the game wouldn't be able to be played on another Xbox, and all these details came out to the public. There was enormous backlash back then because, you know, this was 2013. You know, didn't people didn't fully transition to an all online or all digital ecosystem just yet. So there was, you know, more pushback back then compared to now. Microsoft backpedaled back then because of the just sheer amount of enormous backlash they got, but yeah, I don't know if Sony will do the same thing. We're just in a completely different environment these days where, you know, most people are buying their games digitally. Most people probably don't give a shit about this announcement. They should. It's not just about, you know, uh, physical games going away. This is like a direct assault on, you know, owning your games outright, because when you buy your games digitally, it's tied to that console's ecosystem, and you're essentially just buying a license that allows you to play the game that can be revoked at any point by, say, the developers that made the game or Sony themselves. Like fucking like recently with the 500 or so movies that people are going to lose access to I think it's just in the EU, but still. Um, this what September, 500 something movies that people actually paid for outright. They're not renting them. They're not watching them via a streaming service. They actually bought these movies. So theoretically, you know, the conventional wisdom for pretty much forever is if you buy something outright, you just fucking own what you bought. But no, that's not the case anymore. There is a big licensing dispute between Sony and some licensing company or whatever, that, you know, owned the rights to these movies, and now all these movies that people actually fucking paid for and thought they owned, oh, it's just gonna be ripped away. Can't watch them anymore. And that's gonna be the future of gaming, by removing, you know, the option to buy games physically, or just, you know, the option to buy your games from more than one storefront. Like, I just don't like the idea of being tied down to one storefront. That is why I still buy most of my games physically. Unless, of course, you know, either there's a sale on the PlayStation Store that's better than anywhere else that's selling the same game, or if the PlayStation Store is offering a game for free that I'm interested in, or anything like that. You know, 9 times out of 10, when I want to buy a game, I first look at the PlayStation Store to see how much the game is on there. Unless it's a new release, then I always buy physically. But if it's for like an older game, yeah, I do check the PlayStation Store to see if it's cheap on there. And then I compare the PlayStation Store's prices with eBay, and 9 times out of 10, When I find a game on eBay, it is cheaper on there than it is to buy on the PlayStation Store. I haven't brought this up in my video about this very subject. I wanted to play LA Noire a few years ago. I already played it on my Switch years and years ago when I first got my Switch, but um, wanted to be able to play it on my PS5. And I'm like, okay, this is a 15-year-old game. This is almost certainly going to be very cheap on the PlayStation Store, maybe like $5 or something like that. It got a remaster in like 2016 or some shit for the PS4, so it shouldn't be that expensive. Nope, it was like 45 fucking dollars. I'm like, I'm not spending that much money for a game this fucking old that didn't get a recent remaster or anything. And then I went on eBay and someone was selling the game for like 13 or 14 bucks. So yeah, I just went with that. Fucking Rockstar. Yeah, I'm not hyped for GTA 6 at all. I mean, I was never really big on GTA. I think Rockstar has much better franchises. I don't hate GTA or anything, but you know, I've never like got the astronomical hype that's surrounding GTA, especially GTA 6. You know, it was a game I was planning on playing eventually. It wasn't something I had to play day one or anything, but now I'm like, yeah, I can live without playing GTA 6 since it's almost certainly not getting a physical release. Oh, it is getting a physical release, just a fucking code in a box. Yeah, fuck that. It's not getting a real physical release, more than likely. No disc. And I just don't want to support that. A major title of that magnitude not getting a disc, no. I didn't even buy Alan Wake 2 when that first came out. That was a game I was looking forward to, and then it was announced that it was only coming out digitally, and I'm like, yeah, no. A game of this caliber, made by a major third-party dev, a AAA game, not getting a disc at release, yeah, no. And then like a year later, it finally got a physical release, and I bought that. I waited the year. I survived. You know, it wasn't a game I was like super duper hyped to play or anything. It was just more like a game that I was just mildly interested in playing, and it's a good game. But it was a game that I was fine waiting a year for, and so I didn't want to support again a major AAA game not getting a disc at launch. And so that's why I'm probably going to skip out on GTA 6. Yeah, you could say I'm missing out all you want. I don't fucking care. Red Dead is much better, anyways. Where did I leave off? A lot of messages. I think here. This is the last one I read, right? Community notes and Twitter regarding PlayStation shit. I'm going away at the end of the month for my birthday, and I'm praying there isn't another heat wave. Well, where are you going? If you're comfortable with sharing. Happy early birthday. I've never done anything super special for my birthday. I've never, like, gone anywhere. Not like for an extended period of time or anything, like going on vacation or anything like that. The most I ever did was birthday parties when I was a kid, and a party for when I turned 20. But aside from that, yeah, my birthdays are just pretty much any fucking day, aside from just eating cake and getting some presents. That's really about it. I'm very low key when it comes to my birthday. I don't even like really mentioning all that much that it's my birthday. There's a lot of people out there who when it's their birthday, they're like, "Holy shit, it's my birthday. Where's my happy birthday?" Um, greetings, but no, I'm not like that. At least not anymore. I used to make a big deal out of my birthday when I was a kid. But ever since my teenage years, I'm just like, well, it's my birthday, whatever. Not even on milestones like turning 18 or 20 or earlier this year, 25. Didn't really make a big fuss. I mean, I did get quite a few happy birthday messages from real life friends and online friends, and I appreciate all that, but you know, other people make a big deal out of my birthday, but I don't. I just don't really give much of a shit. It is insane to me that the PS6 is already coming out possibly next year when I only got my PS5 last year. Yeah. It really doesn't feel like we're on the cusp of a next console generation, probably because, you know, what does the PS5 really have to show for its power? For most of its lifespan, there's been crossover between the PS4 and the PS5, therefore, meaning many, major releases were, um, held back in terms of, like, how demanding they were by the PS4 because they still had to accommodate the PS4's hardware. I mean, that's finally over. I don't think any major games are getting released on the PS4 anymore, or at least I hope. But, you know, that was a major strike against this console generation, just how fucking long the overlap was between the PS4 and the PS5. For certain factors that was out of Sony's control, of course, like, the pandemic causing a supply shortage. But that's also just resulted in a lot of games just kind of being like enhanced PS4 titles as opposed to, like true next gen experiences. There's very few games that I've played this generation that have really wowed me. The only two that come to my mind immediately is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and Spider-Man 2. Congratulations to Insomniac, I guess. Both Insomniac games. But yeah, that's really about it. All the other games just kind of feel like enhanced PS4 titles, at least most of them. I really don't see the need for the PS5 Pro that came out a few years ago. I mean, is that something we really fucking needed? Were games really getting so demanding that the base PS5 could barely handle them that we needed a fucking Pro? Yeah, not really. Yeah, sure, it's more of an enthusiast device, whatever, but, still, it just wasn't fucking needed. And, the same goes for the PS6. Do we really need a PS6 at this moment? I think the PS5 is still handling, games that are coming out now just fine and will continue to handle games just fine for several more years to come, I'm sure. And it's like I said, that's partly why I'm just not excited for the PS6, even before the catastrophic announcement of Sony ending physical game production. There will be very long overlap between the PS5 and the PS6, eliminating the need I have for a PS6 since, pretty much all the major titles will still be coming over to the PS5. The console will be expensive as fuck, so I'm sure a lot of people will just skip out on getting the fucking console and sticking with their PS5s. Even more incentive for games to still be released on a PS5 for the foreseeable future. We're getting like a $1,200 console that's let's be honest is not going to be that much powerful over a PS5 Pro and the base PS5 because it's not like the Pro was such a huge leap between from the base hardware. Where did I leave off? Here. I haven't watched a stream of yours since I was 10. Well, welcome back for however long it's been since we're 10 years old. Well, I mean, hopefully it's that you're not saying that was only like 2 years ago or some shit. Sony isn't known for backpedaling, anyways. I mean, they have backpedaled on certain things. Like the first time around when they were closing the PS3 and Vita stores, there was a lot of backlash surrounding that, and Sony did cave. They're a little less stubborn than, say, Nintendo, but not by much. But yeah, I don't think they're backpedaling on this. Or at least they won't fully reverse course in that, we'll be getting physical releases for PS6 games, and the PS6 will have a disc drive and all that. It's the design of the console by this point is set in stone. That's not something you can easily just reverse or alter significantly, I'm sure. It's not coming with a disc drive, almost certainly. There'll probably be one developed, like as an add-on, like I said, you know, for the sake of backwards compatibility with PS5 games and being able to play your PS5 discs on your PS6, and again maybe your PS4 discs also. I would hope, at least. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of factors that go into play that make it like really unlikely that Sony's going to backpedal on this. Again, they're like even repurposing their manufacturing facility for their physical that has been utilized for their physical releases. Sony is pretty dead set on this. Going back to the Mystic video I mentioned before that I saw, one of the stories he went over was an analyst in the gaming industry saying it's very, very likely Sony is not reversing course on this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, this is just some analyst that's I'm pretty sure not affiliated with Sony. So, they could just be talking out of their ass, and for all we know, Sony does reverse course, which I hope they do, but, it's just looking like that's not going to happen. I just play my modern games on Steam. Well, I've been playing all my modern games on my PS5. Maybe I should. Maybe this is a good time to start looking into playing on a PC. Yes, I know PC is all digital, or mostly digital, like PlayStation wants to be, but at least on PC you have options when it comes to the storefront, and you don't have to just buy games on one storefront. There's also piracy. Ooh, that's an option too. You didn't hear that from me. Have you seen the new Masters of the Universe movie? Considering I have never heard of that movie, no. I'll just wait for GTA 6 to come out on PC. I'm not buying a console for it. Yeah, it's gonna be not PlayStation exclusive, console exclusive for at least a year. I think that's what they did for Red Dead 2 when that game came out. It was exclusive to PC for, I think, a year. Not PC, console, I mean, for a year. And then it came to PC afterwards. I remember one of my friends really getting pissed off about that back when Red Dead 2 came out. He was like, "I really want to fucking play that game, but I don't play on a PlayStation. I don't play on Xbox. Fuck consoles. I play on PC, and yet the game is going to be console exclusive for at least a year." I remember him getting really upset about that, but he uh, he eventually, eventually the game came out on PC, and I'm sure he was happy when that happened. Remember when consoles were only about 300 pounds? Well, I'm American, so. But I do remember when consoles were affordable, yes. I also remember when consoles used to go down in price. Those were the days. Who would have thought, you were getting a good deal when you bought a PlayStation, when you bought a PS5 at launch or near launch? I got my PS5 in April of 2021, so that was pretty close to launch. And I thought for sure by this point the PS5 would have drastically gone down in price, like consoles typically do by this point in their lifespans. But no, I ended up getting a good deal on my PS5 by getting it close to launch, because now it's significantly more expensive than it was back then. Who would have fucking thought? What a fucking nightmare console generation. Like, easily one of the worst. Has to be. On top of being a complete nothing burger console generation in terms of like, enticing games, actually being exclusive to the PS5, you know, I mean, it has its share of, enticing games, of course, but, just a slew of remasters, remakes, re-releases, the prices of the consoles going up in price as time goes on, as opposed to the complete opposite, like it's traditionally been. Just the gaming industry is going in a really bleak direction, and I really just fucking hate it a lot. No, because I'm American and 19. Oh, you're 19. You're the one who said you used to watch my streams and now when you were 10. I was worried. I was like, how long ago were you 10? You're gonna say like just a year ago. Ooh. A quote from 2009 by Satoru Iwata where he predicted games would be mostly digital in 20 years has resurfaced. Yeah, didn't he say that in like 2007 or some shit? I think I saw someone share that. Yeah, he ended up being right. I mean, even back then it was kind of obvious with, digital games. I don't think that was how people were primarily buying their games back then, but, there were still digital storefronts that were gaining prominence. Digital storefronts that were even, built into the PS3, the 360, and the Wii. And, more and more major releases were being released digitally as well. And people just thought it was convenient, Hey, I could play my game, buy my game on the console itself, let it install, and then immediately be able to play it. I don't have to go to a store. I don't have to buy it online, wait a few days for it to ship to my house or anything like that. Just be able to play it immediately. Hell yeah. Like, I understand the convenience, but it's still something I chose not to fully embrace. I mean, not just, the principle of being able to actually own the media I buy, but also because I just like owning my stuff physically. I like owning my games physically, at least. I like actually owning my games and having a physical collection to look at. And especially when it comes to a game I'm really hyped for, just holding that, holding the box in my hands. Like the Resident Evil 4 remake that came out a few years ago, I was super duper hyped for that game because the OG is my favorite game of all time. And the remake is great, by the way. Love it a lot, but when that game came out, yeah, sure, I had to wait a few days for it to ship to my house when I could have just bought the game day one off of my PS5 and be able to play it immediately. But it was worth it because I had that satisfaction of finally being able to hold that game I was so hyped for in my own hands. It was just it was just a really special experience that just can't be replicated if you buy a game digitally. Yeah, sure, the hype may still be there, but it's just an extra special feeling when you have a physical copy in your hands of a game that you really, really wanted to play. I don't know, maybe none of you can relate, but it's something that's really special to me, that experience. Fuck corporate greed. It's also just, a byproduct of how less communal everything is getting. Like not being able to share your games with anyone. Oh, not that I was doing that. I've never lent a copy of any of my games to any friend or anything. Not that anyone has ever asked me to. But you know, I've seen a lot of people on social media who are like, grown adults now saying, back when they were kids, they used to lend their games to their friends, or their friends would lend them their games, or they would take their games over to their friend's house and they'd play, co-op together, or just having a fun time playing their games with their friends, and taking that copy to their house. Everything is just so cold and distant now. Maybe distant is the wrong word, but isolating. You don't really hear stuff like that anymore. Kids taking their consoles or their games to their friend's house to play with, their friends. And I'm sure it still happens, but, you know, everything is just, everything just feels more isolating now. Mainly because, this. um, Smartphones completely taking over people's, attention spans and their free time in general. People don't really feel as inclined to interact with each other and, share experiences with each other. And so the trends are following that. Case in point, games going all digital. There's not much of a need to like bring your game to a friend's house or anything because people aren't doing that as much anymore. Also, I'm done with Sony. I'll just stick with Nintendo and PC gaming and collecting for previous PlayStation consoles, including the handhelds. The PS5 is the only PlayStation I've ever owned. Before then, I've only been a Nintendo guy. Well, I mean, before I got my PS5, I was hardly gaming anymore. I only had a Switch. I wasn't really playing that all that much. But, well, a little before that, I started GameCube collecting. And that really got me back into gaming. And then I got a PS5, and, I've been playing that. Oh, I've also been playing on my GameCube as well. I am playing on my GameCube currently. I'm playing OG Resident Evil 3. Just yesterday, I finished Luigi's Mansion 1. Again, beaten that game several times. Oh no, that game did get a remake actually, so saying OG is correct. I forgot I got a 3DS remake, like, in what, 2020? Yeah, that really should have come out on the Switch. I've been having lucky moments after lucky moments this month. I'm heading back to active work in about 10 days. Break's over. Well, have fun, I guess. Depending on how much you enjoy your job, I suppose. Hey Mikey, hello Olin. How you doing? Now I know to hide out in the UK during the Chicago winter. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to go to UK to the UK uh, in the midst of the heat wave that's going on. I mean, I could barely fucking handle the heat that we've been getting here in NYC. But yeah, I don't think I'd handle. I'd be good at handling at all the heat the UK has been getting, especially since the UK isn't really equipped to handle the kind of heat it's been getting. Yeah, that was me. Our homes are built to keep heat in. People are literally being baked alive in their homes. Every time there's a heat wave, people die. Yeah, that's obviously the most tragic thing about this UK, about these constant heat waves the UK has been getting. It's been killing people because, like I said, the UK isn't really equipped to handle that kind of heat because it typically doesn't get that hot in the UK. I don't think, at least. I mean, maybe I shouldn't speak so authoritatively on UK weather, considering I've never been there or have ever been anywhere near there. But to my understanding, at least from what people have been saying, people who are actually from there and live there now, it doesn't typically get that hot in that part of the world, and so there's less of a need to have AC and other things that are pretty typical in American homes to combat against heat, because it gets hotter here in a lot of places in the States than over there. Like, if we had a heat wave like that, like the UK has been getting over here in New York, yeah, sure, it would still be pretty miserable. But, I live in a house that has AC that is not built to keep heat in. So, I could just like hunker down here in my house and be completely fine. But it's not that simple over in the UK. It's much more dangerous to get heat like that over there. Yeah, I mean, just best of luck to everyone that's over there. Nothing really much I could say besides that. Speaking of the UK, I feel bad for the Windsor Castle guards who have to put up with the heat and shitty tourists all day. I mean, those guards that are who's, who are not allowed to react to like fucking anything that I see. I mean, I'm more used to like obviously, I've been like introduced to those kinds of guards through like television shows and movies that make fun of them. Yeah, imagine just having to stand stock still with a completely blank expression, just fucking cooking under the gear you're wearing. Yeah, no thank you. Well, I bet it's also shitty to be one of those guards and having some dumb fuck American or tourist from wherever else screaming in your face trying to get a reaction out of you. It's another reason why I'd never want to do that. But no, that's such a short-sighted way to build a home because they're good. They're good in the winter, horrible in the summer. Yeah, but I guess they're built with the thought that it's never going to get as hot as it is currently in the UK ever. Yeah, I know it is very short-sighted, but I can like on some level understand the rationale. Like oh, it doesn't typically get that hot here in the UK, so we don't really have to build our homes with the heat in mind. Again, short-sighted, and I would hope this changes the way homes are built in the UK going forward. But yeah. We didn't get heat like this until nearly a decade ago. Before 2018, they were a once in a decade thing. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the point I'm getting at. You know, weather phenomenons like the UK is experiencing now wasn't something that was common up until what, this year or a few years ago. I mean, I think the last few summers in the UK have been progressively getting hotter, if I'm correct. If I'm, remembering correctly what I've been hearing. Again, now that it's becoming more of a common thing, probably every summer going forward is going to be really hot over in the UK, more than likely. I would hope that future homes are built with, the extreme heat in mind. Hopefully people get access to AC and, other things that are, again, American homes typically have to combat against heat. You think Nintendo actually responded to give us Mother 3? Unless there's some development in that I haven't heard about somehow, no. Nintendo has never actually acknowledged people who want Mother 3 in the West officially. Aside from that stupid fucking animation they did in what, E3 2013, 2014, either one of those 2 years, where someone would, they're making fun of the people who have been asking for Mother 3. They asked Reggie, can we finally get Mother 3? And then I remember Reggie threw a fireball at that person. Yeah. Fuck you too, Nintendo. Well, I mean, I'm more than happy with the fan translation. I've been of the frame of mind for years at this point that the fan translation is likely better than what we would ever get from Nintendo. I'd imagine Mother 3 would undergo heavy censorship, especially like all the light cursing that's in that game. And, very raunchy jokes and raunchy lines in general. That would all get scrubbed or, censored or completely rewritten. Whereas the fan translation is almost a one-to-one translation of the original Japanese dialogue. And I am more than happy with playing that. Even if Nintendo were to finally, provide the West an official translation of Mother 3, I would still be like, you know what, I'm fine with the fan translation. I'd probably play the official translation just for the sake of playing it and see exactly what, Nintendo themselves have changed in the dialogue and the content of the game, but yeah, I would imagine I would still like the fan translation more since, it would obviously be a lot more faithful to the original dialogue of the game. I mean, look at the censorship that Earthbound underwent. There was a lot of a lot of raunchy references and references to drugs and alcohol in the original Japanese version of the game that were completely censored in the West. I think there is a fan translation for Earthbound that, is a one-to-one translation of the original dialogue in Mother 2. Maybe I should play that someday. Oh, and of course, let's not forget, I mean, Ness was butt-ass naked in Magic Hand in Mother 2. There's that they changed as well, but, I'm fine with them changing that in the West, honestly. Steam only started banning TF2 bots after years and years. I've never played TF2. I'm guessing that was a big problem for a long time. That's a callback to when Nintendo did the, virtual game cards. They were slick about it, though. Oh, what, the key cards, you mean, for the Switch 2? I mean, those you don't actually own either. Well, I mean, you own them in the sense that they're physical copies of a game, but they're still pretty much just like glorified licenses you buy for a game that Nintendo could like swipe away at any point, making you unable to play the game anymore. Let me finally change my position. The way you described Xbox having a slam dunk over Sony regarding physical games reminds me of Sega's Genesis does but Nintendo don't slogan for the Sega Genesis in the 90s. Yeah, I remember a couple of times I've watched compilations of Sega Genesis commercials completely trashing on Nintendo. Those were fun, even though at the end of the day they weren't that effective. I mean, the SNES still outsold the Genesis by a fuck ton, I'm pretty sure. And, it was a more powerful console in general, minus the blast processing the Genesis had. It's really unfortunate how much Sega stumbled when it came to their consoles. I mean, the Genesis was really the only. I mean, the Master System actually, I think, was also a pretty decent console and sold decently well, I'm sure. But you know, obviously their biggest console was the Genesis, and they just really stumbled after that with the 32X, the Sega CD, the Saturn, the Dreamcast. I mean, not to disparage those consoles, or at least the Saturn and the Dreamcast. I hear those are, actual good consoles, but just all those fucking stupid add-ons for the Genesis and them not really, you know, them abandoning the Saturn pretty quickly. It really destroyed a lot of faith people had in Sega as a console manufacturer. And it's really unfortunate, like I just said. I wonder how Nintendo felt when Sega first put a Sonic game on a Nintendo system. I know the first time Sonic was on a Nintendo console was the GameCube, but I forget which game exactly was the first to be put on the GameCube. I think it was the ports of Sonic Adventures. I could be mistaken, but just wonder how Nintendo felt. What was it you were saying about all that shit you can do that we can't? Well, we're still making consoles and you can't do that anymore. Yeah, I'm sure Nintendo didn't actually give that much of a shit. That's how I'd be, though, after all that shit talking in the 90s. But yeah, going back to Xbox, I mean, they could have an easy slam dunk in saying, we support physical media, we support you buying used games and all that, like Sony was doing in 2013 after that disastrous Xbox One reveal. But we all know that Xbox is going to follow suit as well. The next Xbox is reported to not have a disk drive either. There's rumors that Microsoft would be a little more generous. Like you could take your physical copies of Series X games, and even before that, Xbox One games, and I think even 360 and original Xbox games even, and like convert it into like a digital download or some shit. I'm guessing they'll probably make like a disk drive add-on for that. I don't know how exactly that'll work. At least there's that, I guess, but still, it's just, them. They're still not going to traditionally support physical media in the sense that they'll still be printing physical releases of games, because for years at this point, Microsoft has tried to pivot people away from buying games physically or just buying games in general, trying to fucking like shoehorn or like, not force, but entice them to subscribe to a streaming service to play their games, Game Pass, which has proven to be well, not a failure, but just a really bad business model because of all these fucking studios they've acquired, and they're banking on Game Pass to like recoup the losses they they were accumulating from buying all these studios, but it just has never happened. And games have been flopping sales wise because people have just been playing them on Game Pass for the most part, not actually buying them digitally or buying them physically even. Because why the fuck do that when you could just subscribe to a streaming service and download games off of that? They've been priming their players to only play on Game Pass for so long at this point, and now the consequences of that are finally blowing up in their faces. On top of acquiring all these fucking publishers and studios and shit. I remember when Alpha Omega Sin made videos on the Xbox One stuff back in the day, and that's how I first heard about his channel, of all of his rants on the Xbox One. I remember being really entertained by them and how vulgar he was. Yeah, he hasn't made videos in years, I don't think, or at least a few years. Not that I really blame him. There's no way modern YouTube would. There's no way his videos would fly in modern YouTube. Alpha Omega Sin is a name I haven't heard in a long time. Yeah, me neither. I think I'm still subbed to his channel. Maybe it's a pointless sub at this point since he hasn't uploaded in so long, but anything is possible. I mean, hey, Hi Guy Rules has been uploading again, or at least doing live streams, none of which I've actually seen. He hasn't made videos in like, what, 5 years, and now he's back on the grind again. One day our games will be like Black Mirror, where you put a disc to the side of your head and then say enter game. That's amusing, even though I have never seen Black Mirror. So I've heard good things about that show. Maybe I should see it someday. It's on Netflix, right? It's actually a Netflix show that people seem to like, which is rare. There's a lot of shit on that service. Sony are just taking the piss now. I prefer getting games secondhand and always have. I absolutely prefer buying games secondhand. Again, unless it's like new releases where, you know, obviously there's not much of a. I mean, you can still buy those secondhand, but still, it's not going to be that much cheaper. It's a new release, but anyway, yeah, I absolutely do prefer buying games secondhand because it's almost always cheaper than it is on the. A game secondhand is almost always cheaper than it is on the PlayStation Store. Sony isn't that generous when it comes to sales or bringing things down in price. Like God of War Ragnarok is going to be 4 years old in a few months, and it's still like what, 70 goddamn dollars, full price or near full price. Nintendo is pretty shitty when it comes to this as well. They still like selling their games full price like years after its release. Like, I remember getting Breath of the Wild a few months before Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't buy it, I didn't buy a new copy. I bought it secondhand. Well, actually, I got it as a Christmas present. Yes, but my mom bought it secondhand. because it's a game from 2017 and it was still being sold for like 60 something dollars. It's like, why would you pay that much for a game that was already several years old by that point, and the sequel was on the horizon. Yeah, I tried playing Breath of the Wild again a few years ago. I mean, I finished it. Well, I didn't finish it the second time around. I finished it when I first played it on the Wii U, back when it launched. It's a game that I just cannot get into. I find it really fucking boring, to be frank. And from what I hear, Tears of the Kingdom isn't really that much different. Just bring back the fucking dungeons. Like, staple of the Zelda series. Why would you fucking... Whatever. God, I really hope they don't make the Ocarina of Time remake more in line with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Fucking Christ. Instead of selling games, we just sell the box now. Yeah, the fucking code in the box bullshit. Always hated that. Like, what's the goddamn point? I buy a physical copy for the disc, so I could have an actual, real, physical copy of the game, not just for a fucking box with nothing in it. There was a Sega Genesis compilation game that got delisted sometime back. I don't think I heard about that. Delisted as in you just couldn't buy it anymore, or like were people like who actually bought it now prohibited from playing it? I'm going to Yorkshire, so not far. Oh, for your birthday. Oh, I was wondering why you said that. Yeah, that's the drawback of me spending like 5 minutes rambling on each message, but I like doing that, so I'm not changing that. Yeah, have fun. That's all I'll say. Again, I do nothing for my birthdays aside from like have some cake and some people get me presents, which again I appreciate. I'm not gonna say anything negative about that. I'm glad I have people in my life who care about my birthday more than I do. It's just that I personally don't really give that much of a fuck when it's my birthday and don't really make a big deal out of it at all. Again, it's something that I don't even mention unless other people bring it up. I don't know, I've never really liked making things about me. At least in my personal life. You might find that weird for someone who has a YouTube channel that's all about giving his opinions. That has 1,700 videos of him giving his opinions. Valve is also doing away with Steam gift cards. I somehow missed that message. Well, that's bullshit. Just more. Just another example of a company trying to squeeze as much money out of their customers as possible. For 19, I went to Canada. For 19, I didn't do shit. Well, I turned 19 in 2020, March of 2020, My birthday is March 20th. That was right when COVID started. Or at least, lockdowns began. So, even if I wanted to do something that year, I couldn't because everything was closed down. But my mom did manage to go to a bakery and get some cake. A bakery that was still open. Obviously, you couldn't dine there during that time. I do look back at that birthday a little fondly because that was the last birthday of mine that I had before my grandmother passed away. She passed away in September of that year. So, that was the last birthday of mine that I got to spend with her. It's also pretty sad because she was looking forward to my 20th. She never got to experience that. Yeah, I've never been to Canada. My father lives near the Canadian border. He can't go over to Canada though, because he's a felon. Yeah, you're not getting any more details than that. But yeah, he lives near Niagara Falls, which isn't the best area. It's funny. He's said he's seen Niagara Falls so much that he just doesn't give a shit anymore when he sees it. Like he used to date a woman that had a daughter, and she'd take her daughter and her friends to Niagara Falls a whole bunch of times, and he would go along too, and just got to the point where he got so sick of seeing those fucking falls. Yeah, there's only so many times you see something that all the wonder and the joy and the excitement of seeing it just goes away. It's kind of like, living in NYC your entire life, like me. I've seen so many, like, famous landmarks that are, you know, hallmarks of this city. I live near some, but, since I've lived here my whole life, it's just nothing special. Whereas, I remember when my father came down for a birthday party for my uncle and my father's side of the family. It actually, the birthday party was upstate, but he came down to pick me up. He also came with his girlfriend and her two sons. This is another girlfriend, not the one with the daughter. He broke up with her a long time ago. But this girlfriend had two sons, and I remember when we were on the highway going to that birthday party, when we were still here in the city, we're passing by certain landmarks I have seen my whole life, have passed by my, insurmountable, countless amounts of times in my life. And they're like, holy shit, look, it's that, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, wow, it's really interesting, seeing a tourist perspective on NYC as someone who has lived here his whole life. They're like taking pictures, getting really excited because they live all the way upstate. I don't think they've ever been in NYC before a few years ago for that birthday party when they picked me up. So it was like something that was really special to them. I want to see a movie this year for my birthday since I'm going to be 30. Oh, you're turning 30 this year. I thought you were turning 29. Well, it's weird to think I'm 5 years away from 30. I still feel like I'm 19. I don't feel like an adult. Well, 19 is technically an adult, but not like you're still functionally a teenager. That's kind of how I feel. I still feel like a teenager in certain aspects. I don't really feel like an adult. I'm still trying to get the hang of this whole adulting thing. I know people get really pissed off when someone says adulting, but I don't fucking care. Said this in the Discord a few days ago, but gaming to me was significantly better 20 years ago than it is today. Well, I mean, it was. I think I said this in response, but back then you didn't have DRM. You didn't. You actually owned your games. You didn't have to have an online connection to fucking play your games or even buy them. You got to have physical copies of your games. You didn't need to install your games. You didn't have to wait an hour to just play a fucking game when you first got it. Just plop it in the console and play it right away. Like, here's my GameCube. Here's my copy of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the OG, obviously. Um, this is an actual working copy of the game. I actually own it. All the data is on the disc. I don't need to download it or install it onto my GameCube or anything like that. Just plop the fucking game in, it plays right away. I missed that so goddamn much. I also just love the tiny little disc that the GameCube had. Well, kind of, sort of. I know. I also know this hindered third-party support for the system. I think it was Konami specifically that cited the tiny discs being why they hardly supported the system, which is unfortunate. GameCube probably could have had Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, Silent Hill 2, 3. If it weren't for the little discs. Or maybe they would have still skipped out on the system anyway, because it wasn't really a high-selling system, and even if it had normal-sized discs, it would almost certainly not beat out the PS2, because that was such a behemoth. For 20, I stayed the night at a beach resort in South Padre Island. It's nice. The only time I ever went on vacation was going to my grandmother's house. She lives down in Florida. That was back in 2021. It was late April of 2021. I went 5 years ago now. Wow. I believe it's already been 5 years. I don't know if I'll go back down. I mean, I liked seeing her, but she comes up here a few times a year, and I've seen her a couple of times since here in New York. And plus, most of my father's side of the family still lives here in New York. I think certain family members live in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, but the Upper East Coast are all still, within that vicinity. And then there's my grandmother who lives all the way down in Florida. I remember my family trying to get her back up here in New York, but she's fine living down in Florida. Game consoles are the new iPhones. Maybe, but if not, I'll agree with that more if Sony starts releasing a PlayStation every fucking year. I'm probably gonna go to a local Italian restaurant named Nico Letti's for my birthday. They have amazing pizza, spaghetti, and other Italian food. I went to my local pizzeria the other day. I actually ate there. I didn't order to go or order for delivery. It's been a long time since I actually ate at that pizzeria. Usually I just order for a delivery or I go and pick up my order. Pizza is so fucking good when it's just fresh out of the oven, steaming hot. Especially that place that makes good ass pizza. I love living here with all the fucking great local pizzerias. Dude, I'm 19. I'm Sila from Discord. Oh, yeah. That's your username here. I wasn't paying attention to your username. The ChatGPT Atlas browser has shut down after less than a year. I didn't even know ChatGPT had a browser. Well, I don't keep up with anything ChatGPT related at all. I'm a proud Luddite. Well, if I was a Luddite, I wouldn't be streaming to YouTube right now. Luddite when it comes to a lot of the AI shit that has been taking over the world. Let's just say that. My peak piracy was around 12 to 16. I literally stole every game. Maybe you should go back to doing that. It's not like modern gaming conglomerates are really uh, allowing you to actually own your games. You're just pretty much buying licenses these days that allow you to play these games that can be revoked at any time by any of these, conglomerates or storefronts. May as well just fucking pirate your shit. At least then you'd actually own what you have. Had no money, so like I was a kid and knew I'd get leniency if I somehow got caught and said fuck it. How many people actually get in trouble for pirating games? Now, I mean, if you're running like an emulator site, I know you could get. I know there's a significant, you're significantly more likely to get in trouble for that. But I mean, like just simply downloading ROMs. Yeah, like I don't think many people really get in trouble just for that. Don't worry, people, I buy my games now I got money. I wouldn't give a shit if you're still pirating your games. I mean, hey, I do love that indie games have received more love than ever before. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to indie titles, I mean, I'm just like, yeah, you should probably still buy those. Absolutely support smaller devs who actually, need the money. I'm talking about like Sony and Microsoft, Nintendo, and a lot of these, huge third-party publishers. I do not give a shit at all if you choose to pirate those, games from any of those platforms and developers and publishers. These are multi-million dollar companies. In Microsoft's case, they're a fucking trillion-dollar company. Have at it. I do believe that this generation has boosted indie games and indie dev popularity. Oh yeah, I've heard about a lot of indie games that have been gaining a lot of traction. Should probably start playing more indie games. Most of my games are major AAA games. The Fireball was more so Robot Chicken, but they did eventually give us more Star Fox, lol. I have never given a shit about Star Fox. It's the same fucking game every time. And the only time they changed course and did something unique with the Star Fox IP, it was actually another game with just Star Fox slapped on it that was a Zelda clone. Star Fox Adventures is the game I'm talking about specifically, if you didn't know. Yeah, I mean, all of it is just. Aside from that, I mean, yeah, Star Fox is a franchise I just don't really. Not really a fan of. I do like Star Fox Assault. Aside from the on foot stuff, don't really care about that. But the R Wing stuff was a lot of fun in that game, and I do like Star Fox 64, and that's really about it. It's just a franchise that feels like Nintendo has no idea what the fuck to do with it, so that's why, there's always these long dormant periods in between releases. This upcoming Star Fox game, the last Star Fox game to release was Star Fox Zero, that released like, what, 10 years ago now? That came out to pretty horrible reviews because it wasn't that great of a game. I mean, I remember playing it when it came out, and I remember kind of liking it. I didn't think it was horrible. More so, I was like, this is pretty much just a Wii U Star Fox 64. And that's really my problem with the franchise. It's just Nintendo trying to chase that Star Fox 64 hype over and over again and not really innovating on the game formula at all. Just trying to release the same game over and over again, hoping it'll, achieve the same amount of hype and success 64 did. I don't really know how successful 64 was when it came out. I don't know if that was like a huge heavy seller. Maybe it was, but you get what I mean. A beloved title that people look back on fondly, that Nintendo really wants to replicate. Tomato's translation of the Mother 1 side of Mother 1 plus 2 is more close to the Japanese script. I have Mother 1 plus 2. Well, I was going to say on GBA, but that's the only platform it released on. But I have a repro card of that, and it's the English translation, and I only bought that for Mother 1. Do not plan on touching the Mother 2 port, because the GBA port of Mother 2 is pretty fucking awful. Yeah, no thank you. I'll stick with playing Mother 2 or Earthbound on my Switch. I've got to try the Mother games. Please do. They're fucking excellent games. Or at least Mother 2 and Mother 3. I like Mother 1. I bought the GBA version of Mother 1 just because it has that the English translation has that easy ring that kind of dumbs down the game. Yeah, laugh at me all you want. I don't give a shit. I did not have fun at all playing Mother 1 when it released on the Wii U all those years ago, just because of all the fucking grinding and how really unfairly hard the beginning of the game was. It was just unnecessarily punishing. Yeah, I know, get good. I know, that's how games were back then. I don't fucking care. I want to, actually have fun with the game I'm playing. I never played Breath of the Wild. It came out at a time when I had lost interest in new Nintendo games. Even by 2017, I didn't really care that much about Nintendo anymore. I mean, I tried to still LARP as a Nintendo fan by making videos about Nintendo news stories and making Nintendo rants about topics I pretended to give a shit about. But, I was hardly playing games anymore back then, but I still was really hyped for Breath of the Wild. So, I did legitimately want to play that, and then I got it. Again, it was the Wii U version. Yeah, pretty rough version of the game. Just the Wii U could barely handle it. But I remember playing it, and I had to really slog through it and tough it out because I just was not having that much fun playing it. I was like, really, this is what I was hyped for all those years. Oh, I shouldn't say all those years. It was only announced a few years before it released. What, E3 2013 or 14? So like 3 or 4 years before it released. That's not that bad. But anyway, yeah. I just really didn't like how much they changed up the formula. I hated that they got rid of the traditional dungeons. I didn't like that you had pretty much all the items right away. I liked that natural progression of, and also the satisfaction of being able to open up certain areas that were blocked off because you needed an item. I liked that. I didn't like all the shrines you had to do. I mean, you didn't have to do them. I mean, you could have just fucking went to the final boss immediately if you were that skilled. But, the game I just couldn't get into. I found immensely boring. I just finished playing Ocarina of Time again last week. Now that's a Zelda game. I want to play Twilight Princess soon, too. Again. Love that game, too. Now that's another Zelda game. That's good. The Genesis Collection game was removed from sale, but you can still play it. Well, there's that at least. But still, that's another thing that sucks about, games being available only digitally. It can be swiped away from the store at any time. So if you were interested in playing it but didn't buy the game already, oh, too fucking bad. Not available on the storefront anymore. Even if those who already bought the game can still play it, it still sucks for those who were interested in the game but now can't buy it anymore. And that's another reason why I just don't give a shit about people pirating their games, because when bullshit like that can happen, where you don't actually own your games, or a game can be just removed from an online store at any time, rendering you unable to purchase it anymore, and you can't, buy it through any other legitimate means, yeah, no shit, you're gonna turn to piracy. And, why should I not be sympathetic to that? Valve is saying they're ending Steam cards because of scammers asking for them. Well, it still sucks for people who buy those cards legitimately to actually use them for themselves. I've always wanted to go to Canada. It sounds weird, but I want to visit Leonard Cohen's grave. He's been one of my biggest musical inspirations for a long time now. I've never listened to that much Leonard Cohen. I mean, I know the big hits, of course, Hallelujah, or Suzanne, or other songs of that ilk. Never listened to a full album of his. I should. I mean, I really like Bob Dylan. There's a huge overlap, from what I've seen at least, between Bob Dylan's fans and Leonard Cohen fans. I'd imagine I'd really like Leonard Cohen's music if I, gave it a fair shot. I love how tiny the GameCube discs are. Yeah, I mean, again, likely hindered third-party support for the system, so that's kind of a drawback, but it's still quirky in a good sense. They're cute. I mean, I remember as a kid being really intrigued by how small the discs were. I really liked how small and compact they were. It is kind of annoying for certain games, though, not this game in particular, and not for most GameCube games, but certain games like Resident Evil 4 and a few other Resident Evil games like Zero, the remake, and Code Veronica. Those were larger games, so they had to be put on two separate discs. So once you reach a certain point of the game, you had to swap disc 1 for disc 2. And sometimes I'm playing downstairs, and then I'm like, "Ugh, I gotta go upstairs and get disc 2 now, and whatever. I mean, it's not that big of an inconvenience, but yeah, that's another thing I'm not really a big fan of when it comes to the smaller discs. Certain, larger games or longer games needing to be put on two separate discs, but it's not the biggest hassle in the world. And again, I just really like how quirky this is and how cute these little discs are. Could you not find them adorable? At least on my end, the camera is mirrored. I don't know about your view, but like here, I can't even fucking read the disc. It's all backwards. If it's mirrored for you, oh well. It's not like it really matters that much. France is giving timeouts. PlayStation France is giving timeouts to people, mentioning the physical game stuff on Twitch. What does PlayStation in France have a Twitch channel or some shit? Might visit Cancun sometime. Cool. It's very hard to find restaurants that do vegan pizza in the UK, but when they do, it's usually good. My favorite food was pizza before I went vegan, so always nice to have it again. Well, that's one of the reasons, one of my selfish reasons to not go vegan. I love pizza too much to give it up. Well, I mean, it's not the main reason why I'm not a vegan, but I miss when AI wasn't detrimental to artists and drinking water. I miss that too. I would say I can't wait for the bubble to burst, but I really don't know if that'll change much. More like AI would probably just be consolidated down to like just a handful of enormous conglomerates. And it'll still be fucking pervasive to like nearly every single aspect of life. As a fine art major, I picked the absolute worst period in human time to be alive. Like, really fucking sucks how much AI has just infested everything, ranging from, creativity to just people's fucking jobs. Like, I don't mind shit being automated away if it meant like people have getting to like actually enjoy life and being able to afford enjoying life, but people are just being thrown out on their asses thanks to their jobs being automated away and then having no fucking safety net to fall back on, no recourse. Like, just, oh, you're out of a job now. Good fucking luck. The creator of Geometry Dash pretty much said he doesn't care if people pirate his game based. More creators should say that. Did I miss out? Well, I'm ending the stream in a few minutes, so yeah, probably. Whatever. Not like you really miss much if you don't see a stream of mine anyway, just me rambling for 2 hours. A game I wish would come back, but that probably won't. But probably won't because of licensing issues. Is the Legend of Korra game? I had no idea Korra even had a game. I know Avatar did. Had a game on the GameCube and probably also played PS2. From what I hear, it's not a very good game, but I didn't know Korra had one as well. I just saw Korra again a few months ago. A little after I watched Avatar again. I watched Avatar back in I rewatched Avatar back in February, and I think I saw Korra in March, April, something like that. Good show, but it's no Avatar, obviously. Bob Dylan met up with Leonard Cohen in the 80s and said to him, Leonard, you're number one, but I'm number zero. Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen are really similar up to the late 70s. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed there's a lot of overlap between Dylan fans and Cohen fans, and I understand why. I really like that quote from Leonard Cohen right after Dylan won his Nobel Prize. That went something like, Dylan winning a Nobel Prize in literature is like pinning a medal on Mount Everest for being the tallest mountain. He died not long after that. It's unfortunate. Wish he was still here. Alright, this will probably be the last message I read. After Leonard Cohen became more After that, Leonard Cohen became more of a synth pop artist until the 2010s. Yeah, again, I'm not super duper familiar with his work. More so like some of his earlier stuff, like the big hits mostly, and also a good chunk of You Want It Darker. I've heard most of that album as well. I should probably listen to the whole thing because I really like what I've heard. But anyway, with all that said, 2 hours and something minutes. Well, it says 126 minutes here on my iPad, but I know that roughly translates to about 2 hours and 6 minutes, something like that, maybe. Anyway, yeah, different experience streaming on an iPad. Much prefer my MacBook, but kind of can't do that now, and probably won't be able to for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. But I doubt you give a shit all that much. Anyway, yeah, probably stream sometime in August. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to all of those who were here previously but are not here now. I appreciate everyone who participates in these streams, no matter how long they stay. And especially thank you to everyone who stayed here for the full 2 hours. I do not know how you could stomach listening to me talking for 2 hours on end, but nonetheless, I am incredibly thankful for that. Anyway, bye.